It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, on top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
It's a very good evening, Zimbabwe. It's a wacky Wednesday here on ZiFM Sport. The team is here: Mike Madoda, Chris Midzi, our producer Sean Tafirenyika, who puts together this entire effort. And then, of course, my name is Barry Manandi. And what can you look forward to today? Well, on the home front, Zimbabwe international Khama Billiat says the last 3 months have been difficult for him because of the injury that sidelined him from competitive football for both club and country. And into international sports news, we go stateside, where the Lakers made a big move on the NBA's trade deadline day by signing two-time All-Star center Andre Drummond for the rest of the season.
We'll have more international sports news for you when we take you around the world in 60, starting off in England, where Director of Cricket Ashley Giles says the country could lose their best players in future if they're not allowed to play in the Indian Premier League. In news from Australia, Chef Mission Ian Chesterman is confident all of Australia's athletes will be vaccinated against COVID-19 before they head off to the Tokyo Olympics. And in the United States, world number one Ashley Barty advanced to the semifinals of the Miami Open as Russia top seed Daniil Medvedev booked his place in the quarterfinals of the men's tournament.
It's Wacky Wednesday today, so don't miss out on our play of the day. And then immediately after that, we dive into the beautiful game where last night's Africa Cup of Nations qualifier between Sierra Leone and Benin was postponed after the away side refused to accept COVID-19 results provided by the hosts. In European World Cup qualifiers, Poland striker Robert Lewandowski will be sidelined for about a month with a knee injury, ruling him out of tonight's clash against England. And we'll also have league updates from the Premier League as well as Spain's Primera Liga.
But as always, we start with our power play. Being Wacky Wednesday, we call upon Kiz Daniel. This one's called Flex.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Get in touch with us online at ZiFM Sport is the handle. Our individual handles are at Mike Madoda, at Chris Midzi, at Barry Manandi, and of course at Sean Tafirenyika. If you want to get in touch with Alois, it's at Gazaman14. Right, that's top story about Zimbabwe international Khama Billiat, who says the last 3 months have been difficult for him because of the injury that sidelined him from competitive football for both club and country. The Kaizer Chiefs attacking midfielder returned to training this week. He has been out of action after sustaining an injury during a South African Premiership tie against Maritzburg United, the team of choice, on January the 9th at FNB Stadium. He told the club's website that he was tormented by the injury. And in truth, Mike, you can sort of understand, because injuries of this nature, when they're long term, they can have a psychological effect on a player. But you got to think to yourself, with Khama being a battle-hardened warrior, pun intended, he's sort of used to it, but he's never been out for as long as he has been on this injury.
Yeah, the other thing that will concern Khama is that he's no longer a spring chicken. He's 30 years old. He's turning 31 pretty soon. So he's effectively entered the twilight of his career. And so any injury, Barry, influences his future, not just with Kaizer Chiefs in terms of immediate playing time, but also his sell-on value and whether he is still an attractive proposition to teams in South Africa and teams outside of South Africa. I think his age alone probably limits the chances that he's got of making a big move into North Africa. I know that was the conversation 2-3 seasons ago where Al Ahly was interested. You had other teams, Wydad Casablanca, Raja Casablanca, Zamalek Zamalek. They all threw in their hats into the ring. But at that time, he opted to go to Kaizer Chiefs. He's gone to Kaizer Chiefs. He hasn't enjoyed the best of times at Kaizer Chiefs, and now the injuries are starting to set in. So it's all about watching Khama Billiat when he makes his return. I understand he's back in training now with Kaizer Chiefs and is set to feature for the Amakosi pretty soon. But it'll be interesting to note how quickly he's able to get himself match fit and performing at a high level again, because that's what will sort of like get all the doubts away, as it were, especially in his own mind, because it's not just us who are watching. He himself will be watching himself, trying to see, okay, am I still able to perform at the level that I was performing before I got injured?
The headline in the newspaper tomorrow will read, Chris, he hasn't enjoyed the best of time, Madoda. That'll be the headline. Now let's dive into the story proper. And in truth, the fact that he hasn't enjoyed the best of time at Kaizer Chiefs will be another source of psychological turmoil, as it were, for Khama Billiat, because in truth, the team, albeit that it's had a topsy-turvy time in the Premiership and is trying to find form, he's not necessarily the key player that he was when he was at Sundowns.
Not at all. Like Mike said, he hasn't enjoyed the best of times at Kaizer Chiefs. I mean, if you take a look at most recently, 5 assists, 1 goal in 16 games across all competitions. That's not a great stat if you're taking a look at his previous performance with teams like Mamelodi Sundowns. So it's going to be a bit of a tricky time for him. I think coming just before the injury, we were seeing a resurgence of Khama again. We were seeing him playing better. We were seeing him becoming a more influential key member of the team again. And this injury just sort of put a dent in that. And coming back up into scoring goals and providing those assists might prove a little bit challenging for him, like Mike said, because he's first of all critical of himself, but everyone else is taking a look at him, taking a look at Kaizer Chiefs, and the lack of good performances coming out of that team. And there's going to be a lot of criticism.
Logarisic too, Barry, will be interested to see exactly at what level Khama Billiat is operating at with AFCON just 10 months away, and more importantly, crucial World Cup qualifiers starting at the end of the year. We are in a very tricky group, Barry. We've got Ghana, the Black Stars, we've got Bafana, and we've got Ethiopia, a vastly improved Ethiopia side that's capable of getting good results even against the best on the continent. We've seen them upstage the likes of Cote d'Ivoire. So we are not hiding to nothing in that group, Barry, if we don't put our best foot forward. And our best foot, and in this case, our best team, invariably has Khama Billiat in it. And we hope that Khama Billiat will be able to get himself up to speed and performing and playing with confidence. I think that's the key about Khama Billiat. It looks like he's mentally very fragile. He's someone who feeds off the adulation of the masses. He's someone who plays better when he's loved and he feels appreciated. He hasn't got that at times at Kaizer Chiefs, where the media has very much put him under the spotlight. They've scrutinized every performance, and he has been labeled something of a failure and underperformer, especially if you then consider the fact that he's one of the highest paid individuals in South African football. And so that criticism seems to have weighed very heavily on him in terms of the expectations from the Amakosi faithful, from the South African media, and he himself. He's someone who places a premium on his own performances as one of the leading footballers in Zimbabwe. You know, there was a time when you'd call Khama Billiat Zimbabwe's best player, but is he that? There was a time you'd call him Zimbabwe's most influential player. Is he that anymore? Right now, you've got to look at the likes of Knowledge Musona, the captain. You've got to look at Marvelous Nakamba, if we can get him to play as a box-to-box midfielder. You've got to look at Kadewere, if he can bring the form that he has exhibited in France. You've got to take a look at Marshall Munetsi playing in that holding midfield role, a role that Zimbabwe has struggled with since the likes of Nengo Masha and Ezra Mnyandoro hung up their boots.
Yeah, and so on the field of play, it doesn't seem to be working for him. Off the field of play, he's received criticism aplenty, and everything seems to be weighing down on him. We can't talk too much about his Warriors form, although Mike has covered that perfectly. If we talk about his club form and what the criticism he's getting at his club side, in summary, Chris, did he join the wrong club?
It's a little bit tricky. You see, when he moved to Kaizer Chiefs, there was a whole lot of expectation. And there was expectation, first of all, from the fans, and also from the club itself. There's an expectation that he was supposed to be shipping in goals. He was supposed to be providing those assists, and he hasn't met those expectations at all. Especially, like Mike talked about, the fact that he's one of the highest paid players in South Africa. And if you take a look at that pay packet, there are expectations that come with that, and he hasn't been able to fulfill those. I think for Khama Billiat, a move to Kaizer Chiefs was it was not the best of moves. I think if Khama was taking a look at the longevity of his career and possibly making the most money that he could, this was not the best move. Because first of all, when he moved to Kaizer Chiefs, that was potentially the last opportunity for him to move abroad. If you take a look at it now, there's no club, if you take a look at European standards, that's going to look at a 30-year-old striker who is providing 5 assists and 1 goal and say, this is someone that we want to bring into our team. So it's it wasn't exactly the best move for Khama, I would say.
I don't think Khama Billiat has ever been the type of player that any European club would find attractive. He just doesn't have the physical attributes that you need to play in Europe. It goes beyond talent. So the flicks, the dribbles, the fancy little things that you do, ekasi, in South Africa. Sorry, they don't work when you're playing in Europe and you're up against the likes of Ben White and Tarkowski and really strong, sturdy defenders that don't give you time on the ball. So that's why Khama Billiat, even when he was playing at his best at Mamelodi Sundowns, that's why he never got the big move. That's why the clubs never came calling from Europe, because he just doesn't have the attributes that are required for you to turn out in Europe. And when you ask Barry about it, was it the wrong move? Yes, it was the wrong move. It's like moving from Manchester City to go and join Manchester United. It just doesn't make sense. Why would you leave Sundowns to join Kaizer Chiefs? What was he thinking about?
Yeah.
What does Kaizer Chiefs that offer you that you can't get at Sundowns, apart from the fact that they possibly have a bigger fan base? But what is it?
Yeah.
I just didn't get it. You are leaving the champions to go and play for a team that's trying to upstage the champions. You're leaving a team that's playing consistently in the CAF Champions League to go and play for a team that can't even win the Telkom knockout. Tell me the logic other than money.
I want to stay with you, Mike, very quickly and ask you whether Khama, in terms of that move to Europe, was he a tad unlucky as well? Because we look at one of his partners at Sundowns, Keegan Dolly, a player who's a little bit shorter than him, a few centimeters shorter than him. He's slighter of frame, but still got the move to Europe. Was Khama a little bit unlucky?
Stronger player, Barry. It's all about size. It's about being a strong player. You got to have a strong core. Khama Billiat doesn't have that. What do we see every time Khama Billiat is on the ball? Slight nudge, he goes down. Okay? So it's not about the size. It's not about the height. It's about whether you have the strength. That's why Lionel Messi is one of the strongest players we've ever seen play the game. Lionel Messi doesn't go down. He only goes down if you really have made a tackle. There's so many times when, you have seen bigger players, Harry Kane, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, they'll go down. Lionel Messi will carry on playing. So sometimes when we talk about strength, it's got nothing to do with your size. It's just got something to do more with your core and your conditioning. And Khama Billiat has repeatedly shown that, listen, at the slightest touch, he's not willing to battle it out and to man up physically. And that's where players like Keegan Dolly will get the tick and Khama Billiat will get the cross.
Very sad indeed to have a conversation like this about a player, and as you said, Mike, was one of the best in the Zimbabwe lineup, and that's a Zimbabwe international lineup that included Knowledge Musona, a player who at one stage was pipped at the post as being the best player in Africa by his teammate Dennis Onyango, the goalkeeper at Mamelodi Sundowns. So it is an ignominious fall for Khama Billiat, and we hope that he can have one last dance at the very top and pinnacle of African football. The local sports news roundup is next.
Hi, my name is Redicover, Zimbabwean player. You are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Let's begin the local sports news roundup with cricket news, where Zimbabwe Test captain Sean Williams will be the man to watch when the country hosts Pakistan in Harare next month for a 5-match series that includes 2 Test matches and 3 T20 internationals. The all-rounder made giant strides on the International Cricket Council Test batting rankings following his outstanding performances in the recent series against Afghanistan. He was the biggest beneficiary in the latest rankings after he jumped to number 24 to become Zimbabwe's highest-ranked Test batsman. He was previously in 68th place in the world and the 4th among his Zimbabwean teammates. In athletics news, some of the country's Tokyo Olympic Games hopefuls prepare to compete in a qualifying event in Italy. Athletics coach Sifas Pasipamire has challenged them to rise to the occasion. The quartet of Munyaradzi Jaringo, Nidzashe Ngube, Isaac Mpofu and Fortunate Chidzivo are set to take part in the Siena Marathon in Italy on the 11th of April. Pasipamire has been working with Ngube, Mpofu and Chidzivo while Jari was in Kenya as part of his preparations before returning home on Saturday. Let's wrap it up with football news, where Independence Cup holders Highlanders and their arch rivals Dynamos will open the 2021 football season when they clash in this year's Uhuru Cup final at a venue yet to be decided. The announcement was made by Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services Minister Monica Mutsvangwa at the 8th post-cabinet media briefing last night. She said the match will be played under strict observance of COVID-19 health protocols. And Barry Chazunguza taking on Chilamoya Ezimunyama Ngekani. That would be a fitting start to the season, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. By stature alone, I don't think we're going to see quality football, but certainly to see football back on our fields is absolutely fantastic, because I don't think that they're going to have enough time to prepare and be at their sharpest. But listen, any football is good football.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z. From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
If you love American sport, especially basketball, the NBA, now is your time. The Lakers, the defending champions, have made a big move on the NBA's trade deadline day by signing 2-time All-Star center Andre Drummond for the rest of the season. Drummond was in meetings with the Lakers, Celtics, Knicks, Clippers and Hornets, and was strongly considering the Celtics before ultimately deciding to join the Lakers before the trade deadline. Let's hear from Andre Drummond, who spoke to the media after his first practice with LA.
Today was great. Great first practice to me. Being out on the floor again after a month and some change was an incredible feeling for me to be out there. The guys welcomed me with open arms, showed me the ropes and, what it's like to be a part of Lakers basketball. I'm excited for tomorrow's game. That's really it. I'm hyped. Today was mainly just plays, getting up and down a little bit, getting my wind going, making sure I'm feeling 100%, and I do. So today was just a learning day. Yeah, KCP and Markieff have made this transition very easy for me. From the moment I got here, they, just showed me everything I needed to know. I got all the film that I needed to get to, learn their schemes offensively and defensively. Being on the same court as them, again, it was an incredible feeling. Pope, having played with him in a couple years, and Markieff playing with him last year. So the chemistry was already there.
Z.
Well, Chris, the Lakers have thrown Andre Drummond into the mix, and you take a look at their starting 5. Where is he likely to fit in, and who is he likely to displace there?
Most likely, he's going to replace Marc Gasol in that starting lineup, and that effectively moves Marc Gasol to the bench. And Gasol is then expected to split those backup minutes with Harrell, depending on that matchup. So it's a little bit tricky just in terms of those movements and displacements.
It looks like they now have quite a few big men, Chris, in their roster now, the Lakers. They can mix it up, and they can pick the best men for the job, as it were.
Oh, definitely. That big man rotation includes Anthony Davis, Marc Gasol, like I talked about earlier, Montrezl Harrell. And if you take a look at that, he's going to be filling the Lakers' 14th roster spot. So essentially, there's going to be a lot of movement here, and he joins a really big rotation in terms of those big players for the Lakers.
And of course, two players that Chris missed out, Markieff Morris as well as Devontae Kakok. I wonder why, Chris, but we shan't dwell on that one. Barry, is the business at LA in response to what they're looking at on the East Coast, where a lot of people feel that this season is all about the Lakers as the defending champions and the Brooklyn Nets as possible contenders coming out of the East. So LaMarcus Aldridge, he moved to the Nets, you know, and a lot of people stopped short in their tracks and they said, oh my goodness, this is it. It looks like the Nets have put together a winning combination. He's a 7-time All-Star forward center. And many people were talking about, the Nets don't have the defense. They don't have the big man. Well, they've now got Aldridge. Yeah. Do you think that the Lakers moving in to get Drummond was in response to that?
Yeah, I think it's in response to that. We all know that the Lakers organization has already said that they're out to defend their crown and make sure that they do. So they've realized that the Brooklyn Nets are they're a person of interest in inverted commas, and so consequently they're watching the moves that are being made by Brooklyn with great interest. And when that Aldridge deal came over the line, they realized that they needed to bolster their roster as well, and especially in that position of the big man in the center position. And albeit that it's created what you and Chris were discussing about, that crunch where for minutes where each of those guys is going to be making a shout and a push to get more minutes, and likelihood that the 20 or so minutes that they're used to getting is going to be horribly cut down. The quality stakes are going to be pushed up. So you look at their record at the moment, the Lakers are currently 17-30 in the West. That's a record that in essence should be a lot better. They should be touching on having lost possibly maybe 13-14 games at this stage. Having lost 17 games for them is they're a little unhappy about. They need that form and that momentum to keep going. Remember, LeBron James also out at the moment, and that's going to be a key consideration for the Laker franchise.
Yeah, LeBron James missing, Anthony Davis as well, and so they've had some key players missing, the Lakers, and it means that in terms of form at the moment, they're not exhibiting the best of form. In their last 10 matches, they've won 6 and they've lost 4, and that's way behind the Western Conference leading Utah Jazz, who've only lost 2 of the last 10 and won 8 matches. So even the Phoenix Suns are showing better form out in the West, as are the Clippers, as are the Denver Nuggets, and even the Portland Trail Blazers. So those key players that are missing for the Lakers are the ones right now that are influencing that topsy-turvy form, as it were. And Chris, when you take a look at the East, and we've just been talking about the Nets, they're showing some fantastic form, because out of all the teams out in the East, they've got the best form at the moment. In the last 10 matches, they've won 8, only lost 2. They've added LaMarcus Aldridge, which means that they've got the potential to get even better. They're currently second right now in the standings with a similar record to the league leading, or should I say to the Eastern Conference leading Philadelphia 76ers. They're emerging as a real threat. I mean, they were an idea previously, but now they got the pieces for people to really get worried.
They've got the pieces for people to really get worried, and you can see it throughout their performances, that record that you talked about. And for as long as they continue to play like they are now, they're definitely a threat, and the teams definitely need to watch out in that Eastern Conference.
Barry, will it come down to firepower? You know, the ability to get points. Because when you take a look at the strength of the Brooklyn Nets, it's the fact that they've got so much firepower. And in Kevin Durant, they've got a really good shooter. I know people talk about Steph Curry as the best shooter that the game has seen, and that's, you know, when you put everything together. But I think in terms of just being a flawless operator, KD has got to be up there.
Yeah, 100%, and it's about closing those games out. It's baskets win matches, as it were, and I think that your ability to put points on the board is going to be a key consideration, certainly in season, but more importantly in the postseason. So that's where I think the difference is going to be made. Also, we haven't even discussed in the West the Golden State Warriors. I know at the moment they are sitting in 10th position, outside of the playoff positions, but you got to say to yourself, because of the point you've just made, the ability to apply scoreboard pressure, as we say in other sports, sporting parlance, the Golden State Warriors are always a factor. They make it into the postseason, you then never know. But for me, I think that the Brooklyn Nets are still the team to beat.
Still the team to beat, but I've got to have doubts about the Golden State Warriors, Barry. They will certainly score points, but they'll also ship in a bucket load of points as well. They've got to get their players back on the roster and, of course, add another big man to make sure that they challenge. And that big man is, I would love a certain Giannis. Our producer, he doesn't think it's going to happen, but I say wait and see, because there's no way Giannis is going to win anything in Milwaukee. And who wants to be out in Milwaukee anyway? Who would want to be on the bay in San Francisco, in California?
Warmer weather.
Warmer weather. Come on, sure. Who would want to be playing with Steph Curry? So we'll keep you updated on that one, if it ever does happen. Because basketball and American sport, a big part of what we do right here at ZiFM Sport. Upcoming key games: Miami Heat at the Indiana Pacers. The Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis, they visit LA. They should do the business, especially with LeBron missing for that game. Golden State Warriors will visit Miami Heat, and then the Denver Nuggets are at the Clippers.
Hi, my name is Zumba Amute, Los Angeles Clippers small forward, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in England, where Director of Cricket Ashley Giles says the country could lose their best players in future if they're not allowed to play in the Indian Premier League. England players have been rested for part of their winter tour of Sri Lanka and India, but many are taking part in the IPL, which begins on the 9th of April. If players reach the latter stages of the tournament, they could also miss tests against New Zealand in June. Head over to Australia, where Chef de Mission Ian Chesterman is confident that all of Australia's athletes will be vaccinated against COVID-19 before they head off to the Tokyo Olympics. Vaccination is not a prerequisite for athletes competing in the delayed games, but Chesterman said it was common sense to add a layer of safety around the delegation and ensure they did not bring the virus home with them. And we'll touch down in the United States, where world number one Ashley Barty advanced to the semi-finals of the Miami Open as Russian top seed Daniil Medvedev booked his place in the quarterfinals of the men's tournament. Barty battled through her third three-setter of the fortnight to our seventh seed Ariana Sabalenka of Belarus in 2 hours and 16 minutes on the grandstand court. Medvedev, meanwhile, had an easier ride in the men's tournament, easing past Francis Tiafoe of the United States in straight sets, 6-4, 6-3.
Hi, my name is Runi Shamba, Maitoria's super striker. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. The beating drum. The roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
As Mike said at the top of the show, AFCON qualifiers wrapped up last night, except one, because controversy has once again reared its ugly head in the 2021 AFCON qualifiers after last night's clash between Sierra Leone and Benin could not be played following the travelling side's refusal to leave their team bus. Per reports from goal.com, an hour before the match was scheduled to commence, Benin were informed by local officials that at least 6 of their players had tested positive for COVID-19, including star striker Stephen Mwini, and Benin were not having any of it. They claimed that 72 hours prior to that, the entire camp was clean, Chris, and they said this is weaponization of COVID. We're not having it. We're not playing, and decided that the game would instead be postponed rather than them face a side that had an advantage because of COVID-19. Again, Africa struggling in terms of managing this COVID-19 pandemic and its protocols.
Yeah, and it's going to take CAF actually creating specific protocols around this testing in order for this to stop. Because we know that on the continent, it's not necessarily about those 90 minutes all the time. Sometimes it's about all of these tactics around the game itself. And in order for you to curb those and bring them down to an absolute minimum, they need to be set standards. For example, a team can't be told and given their results an hour before the match is supposed to start. They should be regulated in terms of what time testing is supposed to happen and how much time a team must be given to sort itself out. An hour before is definitely not acceptable. And then you start to question exactly why these results are coming out an hour before and why specifically in all of the cases where we've suspected tampering, it's always star players who suddenly test positive for COVID-19. So it's up to CAF to regulate this.
Yeah, very dodgy what's happening, and the fact that I think certain African countries and certain African clubs, I know Simba Sports Club has been accused of doing the same, weaponizing COVID-19 results. And the thing about it is, like what Chris says, it's about the timing of the announcements of the results is what makes it really dodgy. The fact that you've got, some positive tests is nothing beyond the realms of reality, because it happens. It's happening in Europe. It's happening elsewhere. So we can't say we as Africans, we are immune or even star players are immune to testing positive. It can happen that your star player but when the results are being announced 1 hour before kickoff, when the team is already on the bus, on the way to the stadium or has arrived at the stadium, then you begin to question the integrity of the entire process, because the testing must be done in such a way that the teams are given enough notice for them to actually make a plan around who's going to be featuring on a match day. And I can understand the reaction of Benin having refused, because there was so much riding on the outcome of that game. Because if you take a look at their group in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, and you take a look at the standings, Benin leading Sierra Leone by 3 points, okay? Having won their encounter 1-0 when they played each other in Benin. So what does it mean? It means that Sierra Leone needed victory in this game. And if they had joined Benin on 7 points, then it would have come down to several permutations. So this was a winner takes all sort of game. And that's why Benin was unwilling to go into this game without its star players. It places CAF in a very difficult position because the rules are clear. What Benin has is the moral argument. But when it comes to the statutes and the rules and the regulations of the competition, Sierra Leone are on a sound legal footing. And I wouldn't be surprised if Benin loses or forfeits this game and it's awarded to Sierra Leone. Now, if they are awarded by a 3-0 scoreline, as what the law normally stipulates, they qualify because they only lost 1-0 to Benin in the game that they played each other.
Is this a big test, Chris, in your view, of the new administration out in Egypt at CAF? Obviously, perhaps Patrice Motsepe may not have anything to do with this decision in the final shake-up, but certainly the decision is under his purview now. Is this possibly their first real test?
Possibly their first real test, because they need to get this under control as soon as possible. We've got competitions running throughout the year. COVID-19 is not going anywhere. So until they address this head on, it's going to be a floater until there is a significant enough outrage, potentially, is what it might take for them to actually come up with these. But I think it would be great to see them come out, create a few more regulations and get this under control before teams view COVID-19 testing as a potential weapon that they could use.
And for me, very politically at least, that's where it's okay for Patrice Motsepe, because there's not going to be any significant fallout in terms of the African football politics, because it's two Western African nations up against each other in Sierra Leone and Benin. You can imagine what the outcry would have been if this was, let's say, Benin versus Zimbabwe or versus Namibia, and then it would have led to CAF awarding the points to Zimbabwe or to Namibia, and then the West African nation losing out. That's where it would have become politically very dicey for Patrice Motsepe's regime. But like you said, he's probably not even involved in decisions of this nature and stuff happening at this level of competition.
Yeah, certainly is. And let's just wrap up that qualification for you. Key results from last night. Central African Republic beaten at home by Mauritania 1-0. Morocco beating Burundi 1-0. Cape Verde Islands, great result for them. They've been on the up for many years and continue to do so. 1-0 victory over Mozambique. Cameroon and Rwanda playing out a 0-0 draw. In Group K, Madagascar and Niger 0-0 draw, while Cote d'Ivoire was too strong for Ethiopia 3-1. That ended in favor of the Ivorians. And then Nigeria in Group L, 3-0 victors over Lesotho. What does that mean? The final list, full list of qualified nations for Cameroon 2022. Cameroon will be hosts: Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Sudan, Gabon, Gambia, Egypt, the Comoros, Algeria, Zimbabwe, Senegal, Tunisia, Equatorial Guinea, Morocco, Cote d'Ivoire, Malawi, joining Zimbabwe, of course, from the SADC region, and Nigeria, Mauritania, qualifying courtesy of their win over the Central African Republic yesterday, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Ethiopia, and then it's either Benin or Sierra Leone, depending on how the CAF ruling goes.
Horsepower unmatched. Torque to beat the best. Speed unrivaled. Sleek and easy on the eye. Let's get behind the wheel of football engineered to perfection. The Bundesliga. Made in Germany.
European World Cup qualifiers are continuing, and here are last night's results. Belgium thumped Belarus 8-0. Netherlands scored 7 past Gibraltar, who weren't able to score any. Norway edged Montenegro 1-0. Turkey and Latvia played out an exciting 3-0 draw. Croatia beat Malta 3-0, and Luxembourg took the lead versus Portugal, but Diogo Jota got the Portuguese back into the game. Cristiano Ronaldo scored the second, and eventually Portugal ran out 3-1 winners. Now, Gareth Bale has praised Wales caretaker coach Robert Page for keeping the team focused despite off-the-field distractions and securing a massive win. 1-0 it was over the Czech Republic in a 2022 World Cup qualifier. Manchester United 4, Daniel James's goal secured the win. Barry, for Gareth Bale, this is perhaps the last opportunity he'll have to play in a major tournament.
It absolutely is, and in truth, unfortunately, we're beginning to talk about this, about Gareth Bale, both for club and for country, because his career has taken a serious turn left, and he's almost on a road to redemption, as it were. Sounds like a bit like a Western movie, but that's literally what it is for Gareth Bale. He's got to redeem his career, and to appear at a major tournament will be great for him to either make a long-term commitment to Spurs or go back to Real Madrid, fight for his place and become a regular there, has become paramount for him in order for him to at least be referred to as the great player we know potentially he can be. Right now, Gareth Bale has got to put on his big boy pants and do what he needs to do as a footballer first, and then everything else second.
Well, let's take a look at the key World Cup qualifiers tonight. Germany take on North Macedonia. My goodness. Spain versus Kosovo, Lithuania versus Italy, Austria versus Denmark, Bosnia-Herzegovina will take on France, and England will take on Poland, who will be without Bayern Munich striker Robert Lewandowski after he was sidelined for about a month with a knee injury, which also rules him out of the Champions League quarterfinals versus PSG. He won't be playing tonight. He'll be missing versus PSG. This is going to be a true test, isn't it, Chris, for Bayern Munich's credentials?
This is going to be a true test of Bayern Munich. We do know that in terms of the goals, they shipped in from multiple players, but Robert Lewandowski definitely scores multiple goals for the team. And it's going to be interesting when they come up against Paris Saint-Germain, who also are scoring goals at the moment. So fingers crossed Bayern Munich is able to keep it together and that other players are able to contribute goals like they usually do.
I know Bayern Munich were favourites, Barry, ahead of this clash versus PSG, but this evens the odds, doesn't it?
Leveler. This is a leveler because Robert Lewandowski is one of those X-factor players. He can create a goal out of half chances, and sometimes even quarter chances are turned into goals by Robert Lewandowski. So he's going to be a big miss. They have different ways in which they can play. We've seen them play with a front three when he's been left out of the side. So let's see what Hansi Flick can do, and I hope that he's got the tactics to do it as a Bayern fan.
Well, the first team that will have to do without Lewandowski is Poland, who are at Wembley tonight to take on England. And remember, Lewandowski scored a brace in their 3-0 win over Andorra. Who will step into the breach for the Poles?
All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
Let's give you some news from the Premier League now. Manchester City have reportedly abandoned their ambitious move to bring Lionel Messi to the Premier League and have now deemed the whole episode as case closed. City for some time have stood as favourites to be Messi's next suitor should he make an emotional exit from the Camp Nou after expressing his desire to embrace a new challenge last summer. Barry, are you buying into this speculation and this discussion that Manchester City are no longer interested in bringing Lionel Messi to the Premier League?
I am. And it's not on the basis that it's the speculation has come out and Man City has supposedly said it's case closed. But I'm buying into it on the basis that we continue to hear noises about his kids learning French. It's the wrong language if they're going to the Premier League. So for me, I think Paris Saint-Germain has emerged as his next destination if he leaves. Because I'm not abandoning hope that Lionel Messi may remain at Barcelona, especially given the election of Juan Laporta as the president of Barcelona, who has made a commitment to the fans that he will stay and he's going to do everything to make him stay. Lionel Messi himself voted for Juan Laporta. So it's likely that he may stay. If he doesn't, I think PSG.
Mike, what for you is more likely, stay at the Camp Nou or move across to PSG?
I think Barry has just really wrapped it up quite nicely. The fact that Lionel Messi, first of all, voted for Juan Laporta and went public about that. Secondly, the fact that he showed up when Juan Laporta made his first official address as president to the Culés, the official members of Barcelona Football Club. And the fact that Juan Laporta has got a track record of success with Barcelona. He's the guy who built the behemoth that we know as Barcelona. He's the one who put the project together. So if there's anyone who could give Lionel Messi confidence that Barcelona can short circuit their way back to the top of the table, it's Juan Laporta. So I think there will be a lot of discussions that are happening right now behind the scenes around who are our next signings, which players are coming in, which players are leaving, and Lionel Messi getting confident about the footballing project at Barcelona. So I think he gets to stay. I don't think he's going to go to France or to Man City. The fact that Man City have come out and said that is simply because someone from the Lionel Messi camp has told them something. That's why they'll be abandoning their ambitions.
Manchester City most likely to make a different approach to Lionel Messi, and they do definitely need to make a big signing in the next transfer window. We'll keep you posted.
The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
The goal the world wants it!
Let's wrap it up with news out of Spain, where Real Madrid have lined up a, quote, plan B option should Zinedine Zidane leave the Bernabeu, with club legend Raúl and Germany boss Yogi Löw, their top targets, according to reports in Spain. The French boss has just 1 year left on his contract with the Spanish giants as he attempts to keep Madrid fighting on multiple fronts. The Los Blancos are still 6 points adrift of La Liga leaders Atletico and are in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. You got to say to yourself that Zinedine Zidane, it hasn't gone according to, and I'm going to keep the way that they've framed it, it hasn't gone according to plan, Mike, at the Bernabeu, and it could be that he either jumps by letting his contract run out or is pushed by Florentino Perez.
It's one of those situations, Barry, that's going to come. And also the fact that, remember, we speculated on the Juventus situation as well, where Zinedine Zidane remains a club legend, where he remains one of the finest players to play at Juventus. And so they will certainly view Zinedine Zidane as a more experienced option to Andrea Pirlo, who's there at the moment. So should Juve's season fizzle out into nothing, then I think Zinedine Zidane becomes an option for them. And Zinedine Zidane himself will look at Juventus and say, you know what, I'll be welcomed with open arms. Here's a club I can go and work at, and I'll be under less pressure than I am at Real Madrid. I think the relationship he'll have with Pavel Nedved, who's very influential there and who is a former teammate, is a lot better than the one he's got with Florentino Perez, which is really predicated on success and nothing else other than success and your ability to win trophies. And so if he leaves, then we can have a different conversation, which means that he'll need to be replaced. And if he is to be replaced, then you've got to take a look, Barry, at the options. Joachim Löw, is that the direction they want to go? Because his tenure as Germany's national team coach has also kind of like fizzled it out. It's not at the heady heights it was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And then Raúl, does he have the experience? But again, that's the question that was asked of Zinedine Zidane before he took over, and he won a hat-trick of Champions League titles.
Yeah, and some would say that was a result of providence, Chris, that Zinedine Zidane arrived at a time where he had players who were at the peak of their powers, who were able to do the business. Yes, they still needed coaching, but they had the ability and talent to deliver the results that he required. Now, when he's tested, it's proving a little bit more difficult. So you got to think to yourself that it's likely that Zinedine Zidane will leave, and this shortlist is a little bit underwhelming, isn't it, Raúl and Joachim Löw?
Yeah, shortlist definitely underwhelming, and if you consider the amount of pressure he's under at Real Madrid, and without the requisite materials, that's an aging squad that he's got to work with, that he's got to perform with. And any coach, no matter how good you are, no matter how much coaching is done, you can only do so much with a particular squad with particular materials. So likelihood is, I think he's going to jump.
Jump and possibly land at Juventus. Raúl, what's working in his favor? He's already working in the academy at Real Madrid, and it'll be a promotion into the first team. And we know a certain team that is a title rival in Spain who got it absolutely right when they did a similar maneuver and moved a player who was coaching the B side into the A side. That coach, of course, being Pep Guardiola. Can it be the same for Los Merengues? Well, we'll wait to see, and we'll keep you appraised right here on ZiFM Sport. I'm sure that's why you listen to the show. It'll be back tomorrow. Don't miss it. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manande, out.